Caught wife cheating. Now what about her kids? Part 2. A few hours later, criminal attorney, CA, walks into his office and tells him that the $15,000 in overdue child support simply doesn't seem right. The amount is pretty close to what the ex should get paid. His first reaction was, how can a middle-class person obtain so much money? The CA contacted a contact in the county prosecutor's office. It turns out that the ex never abandoned his wife and children. Instead, he was imprisoned on narcotics charges. He was linked to a federal investigation. He was given early release 3 years ago, when the federal government started releasing peaceful prisoners to relieve overcrowding. I'm not sure whether they're still interested in him, but the CA appears to believe he's returned to his former occupation. We double-checked to be sure they were divorced. So Thursday rolls around and it's time for us to meet. Wife and Phil arrive at the home. It was quite unpleasant. I was still undecided on what to do until the Tuesday meeting. I began by stating that I would videotape the meeting so that there would be no misunderstanding of what occurred. They were both in agreement. I inquired whether she had spoken with an attorney. She hadn't done so. I recommended her to acquire one since she was going through a divorce. That comment cleared the air in the room. I agreed when my wife asked if we could talk alone for a few minutes before continuing. She requests that Phil give us some room. She began to apologize. I had to cut her off. I didn't want to hear any excuses. I informed her that she had betrayed my confidence by not only cheating but also lying to me. She inquired as to how. I informed her that I knew a lot more than she believes. I knew she was going to lie even more. So I inquired about the $15,000 and why she had never informed me. She paused for a moment. She had never had so much money at one time and kept it all to herself. She still had the money. I asked if she had any questions about where it came from, and X said he felt he owed it to her and the kids, and that's why he showed up when he had enough. So she's lying straight immediately. I told her I knew the dark family secret, and that her ex was in prison. I inquired as to where he had been in the 3 years after his release, and whether she had met up with him. I knew she was astonished, but the expression on her face when I informed her he'd been out for 3 years told me she didn't. He contacted her around the end of January. We spoke about how X wants to sell me the boys in exchange for his relinquishing parental rights. She maintained she is unaware of this. When I questioned how long it had been going on, she answered just once. I dialed BS. I told her I'd been setting up the camera for a while. I showed her a video of her really dusting the TV and not seeing the camera on top. It wasn't large, but it was noticeable. I just had the camera for a few days, but what the heck, I went with it. She mistook it for a video gaming console. She later confessed that it began in March. 2 whole months. So she'd given me yet another untruth. We called Phil back in at this time. I'd had enough of the falsehoods. We then go on to what I'm interested in, the lads. We are now recording. They both resist, but we ultimately agree that the boys may come over anytime they want, as long as they remain with her. I'd remain in their lives and do what I thought was proper. I expected her to go back to work, not for me to support her. I reminded her about the prenup and how she had broken it. I told her she couldn't have the guys ask for stuff because they'd be honest with me if I asked if they were set up to obtain anything from me. I did mention that I understood she will ultimately have another guy in her life, given her age, and that I would not create any problems if I believed he was looking out for the boys' best interests. They may have moved beyond the period of bewilderment by then and may determine how they will respond to a new stepfather. Finally, Redditors, my wife and I are both ardent fans of several subreddits. We spent many hours reading and discussing our favorite books side by side. She read my post and deduced from my descriptions that it was me. She noticed your emotions. I wish I could have utilized more of your responses, but she read them all and remarked on how you savaged her. Thank you very much. Update 2. I got home on Sunday and unpacked my daughter's belongings from her apartment. In the garage. Early in the evening, I get a phone call from 14-year-old. Old. Dad, what's going on? No one is talking to us. Mom and grandmother are sobbing, and grandpa is shouting. Is this because of what I told you? I informed him that his mother made a mistake, and that he had nothing to do with the situation. He questioned whether I was packing their belongings since he saw the U-Haul in the driveway. I explained what had transpired and that all of their belongings were still there. Monday and Wednesday. There were sports evenings. My family is seated in the bleachers, and I am standing behind the home plate backstop. Because I don't agree with Phil, this is my typical hangout. On his trip across the field, the oldest comes to a halt and brushes up against me. We embrace and converse for a few minutes before sending him back. As I approach my parking place, a 10-year-old boy slams into me at full speed. As he squirms, I reach down and embrace and kiss him all over. My father-in-law asked if we might chat. We take a step away from the source of the noise. He regrets how he has treated me in the past and admits that he was wrong. Well, I accepted a bit late, but I stated I realized it was a difficult thing for him to do. He offered me to join them, but I rejected. He asked if I wanted to speak with his wife. I suggested Thursday would be better, so let's establish a tin and a date. On Tuesday, I will meet with a lawyer. I gave him the whole tale, which he had heard from his buddy but wanted to hear from me. He inquired as to what I intended to accomplish. I preferred to remain with the lads rather than marry. The lads were the most crucial. According to his experience, the marriage would be a masquerade and would be detrimental to the boys. If the wife is feeling better, we might arrange for visiting. In terms of support, he said that I could do anything I wanted for the boys. I'm not going to offer her anything that I can manage. The prenup was strong, but she broke the terms and received no assistance. He did warn, however, that since I had been in their life for so long, courts all around the nation had imposed child support in my case. He did not believe our judges had decided in that manner in the past, but you never knew. He was certain her attorney would seek assistance. He urged that we attempt to get an agreement on everything before going to court so that the judge would look kindly on us. Before departing, he informed me that the partners meet every Monday morning to review new and ongoing cases. My former attorney began by outlining everything. Each partner specializes in something. Estate planning/elder law, criminal defense, liability, and family law. Later in the afternoon, the criminal lawyer meets with my attorney. He phoned a contact in the prosecutor's office after the encounter. The $15,000 price tag didn't seem appropriate. How can people in the middle class have $15,000 lying around? It turns out that their ex did not left them because he was in prison. He was freed after 3 years. Several years ago, when the feds were releasing non-violent offenders to relieve congestion, etc., he was certain that if he returned to his career, the police would be interested, but he didn't have any additional information except the prison term. On Thursday, I'll be meeting with my father-in-law. I asked if they would mind if I videotape so that there would be no later misunderstanding. They both agreed. Before we began, my wife requested a private conversation. Phil relocated to a different room. Wife began to apologize. I had to cut her off. Before you say anything, remember that I know a lot more than you think. When I questioned how long the intercourse lasted, she answered it was just once. I informed her that the video demonstrated that this was not the case. I showed a video of her dusting the television. She never noticed the camera. I knew it was just a few days, but she was lying, so I was as well. She mistook it for a feature of the video game. It's not large, but it's visible from the top of the television. She revealed pretty immediately that she had been married since March. I warned her she couldn't tell any more lies. I informed her about the family's secret, that Dad was in prison and not fleeing. She, too, confessed it. I inquired how long they had been in communication, and she said, since February. When I questioned whether she had met up with him before he arrived, she responded no. I then informed her that he had been out for 3 years. Her expression told me she didn't know. We reintroduced Phil. Switch on the recorder. I inquired whether she had a lawyer. No. I told her she needed one since she was getting divorced. They both asked if there might be some kind of reconciliation, and I answered no. I told her I wanted the boys and that she could live with her ex. When we were alone, I informed her that my ex had attempted to sell me the boys. I did the same for Phil. We agreed that the boys could see me whenever they wanted within reason, and she would not keep me away from them. I said that I would offer at my discretion. She would get no assistance. I didn't want her making the lads ask me for stuff. If I asked, they'd be honest. You've got it now.